for just a couple minutes about just some overall findings before we end, and that way that the guests that kind of did hang around for a bit get a little bit of benefit for sticking around here.
Well, certainly it's an uncertain time. I mean, we have the slide presentation that you saw at FSA&A was um, early, very early in the current administration, and the latest round with the tariffs and the potential effects. Airline bosses are starting to say that traffic is down a little bit. I had a few new charts on that. Um, it certainly seems to be headed in the wrong direction. My main presentation shows basically that the airline business is a commodity business. It's airline seats bolted into airplanes. Pilots fly those planes. So we need that commodity to sell, and for it to sell, it needs to be in a strong market, a consistent, a stable market. Right now, inconsistent, unstable, has already started to head down. Uh, it's almost inevitable that it's going to reduce the demand for pilots in the short term, um, and perhaps in the longer term too. It's really no way to know at this point. So it certainly seems to be headed in the wrong direction. Um, we
Is
have
it
some
is it
companies that
immediate,
are,
like right after the tariff hit, like back in it was beginning of April, like April 2nd, I guess, when Trump kind of did these tariffs. Would you say that prior to that it was doing much better? Like it was actually trending upwards, and now after the new administration and the tariffs and the trade wars and everything, and the market kind of declining back, do you think that it's kind of an immediate effect, just an acute effect, or is it more so it's been kind of happening chronically before that?
the charts I was going to show were going to show the bookings. Uh, so bookings are down, uh, and international travel is down. So those are two big components of the demand for our commodity. And it's still early. I mean, it's just started down. Will it come back up? I don't know. But I would say that the airlines are a capital intensive business. Airplanes cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's very difficult to make those kinds of obligations when you're not sure what the future is going to hold. So we have these very large capital intensive businesses that basically don't respond well to inconsistency, instability, that type of thing. And then we have the potential for a uh, continental and intercontinental boycott uh, because of our policies. So both of those appear to be happening. International travel is down, bookings are down, uh, and if I was an airline manager trying to decide whether to buy a $200 million airplane, it would be a tough decision right now.
Hmm.
So those things don't bode well, but it's never happened before, so we have no precedent, we have no history. Um, I just tend to look at it like as a commodity. I think, you know, the price of eggs, the price of bread, milk, and we are a commodity, large competitive market, and uh, and right now that market is in flux and appears to be headed down. I don't see any way for tariffs to be implemented without increasing cost, which in a commodity market would reduce demand.
Hmm.
So pretty straightforward. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's kind of disheartening to hear. I was kind of hoping for a more of an optimistic view because it looked really good facade during February. So it is
Yeah,
kind of an acute kind of downward turn, just probably in the past two and a half weeks actually. So it is still kind of early. Um,
yep.
would you agree to say that? I mean, like the entire industry is not going to get demolished. Like there's still going to be people flying, either it's domestically or maybe internationally, not so much. Maybe there's some stuff there's some credence to that, but I would think that domestically, people still need to fly around. People still need to go. Maybe the number of pilots needed will decrease, but there is still like back at least what I heard, like as far as people touting, early retirement, the furlough from COVID-19, there will still be a demand, so to speak. Would you agree or disagree with that? Just out of
Well,
curiosity.
there's two main components to the growth formula. Half of it is retirements, and that part remains unchanged. And the other half is growth, and that is the part that's at risk. So there is that underpinning, still strong retirements for a few more years, and they actually hold up higher than normal for better part of a decade. A lot of retirements. The growth portion is the volatile part and unpredictable, and that's the one that's being affected by the current policies, which are on again, off again, and it's not just the policy or the cost of a tariff, but it's the instability of on again, off again, whether that's going to actually happen. That in itself immobilizes uh, companies that are trying to plan high capital cost maneuvers well in advance.
Exactly. So I mean, there might not be any short-term investment in the market, is what I'm hearing. But with the stable retirement age, people retiring, there will still be a need for pilots, right? I mean, what I'm trying to get at is, if because a lot of our audience members here are flight school owners, and we make our bread and butter in the same market as the airlines do. Even if it's a commodity, we make our bread and butter, myself included, based on the demand for prospective people trying to be a pilot. Whether that shifts now from the career pilot track that was very favorable 2 years ago, to more so now is like the career changer, or not sure, I'm sorry, not career, like hobbyist, weekend flyer, or maybe fly the family down to Disneyland type audience. That might be another change that might happen. You don't know. I guess what I'm trying to get at is if what would your advice be to all the flight school owners out there, and CFIs as well, in this kind of unstable time, knowing the knowledge that you have with like the industry and also with the airlines.
Well, first of all, we don't know yet. I mean, give it 3 months, 6 months, we're going to have a much stronger indication of what's going to happen. Right now, the short-term trend is down. The macro stuff, if the tariffs take effect, if there is a boycott, that kind of thing, uh, that looks bad in the future. We don't know if it's going to happen or not. Certainly hope it doesn't. I mean, I make my living in this similar area. So, yeah, I'm certainly hoping for the best, but, and we're not going to know whether to plan for the worst for another 3 to 6 months. We should know pretty quick here, though. 3 months, six at the most, we're going to know what the fallout's going to be. And I don't think it'll be over at that point, but we'll have a clear indication of what's going to happen. And right now, it hasn't been going very long, so we can say it's a minor downturn.
Mm-hmm.
If it turns into a recession or, God forbid, even a depression, there's no doubt that our commodity will not be as much in demand as it was prior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I think that's hit the nail on the head there. Like, it is kind of early to determine. Like I said, it was like tariffs went in effect just what 15 days ago. So and now they've been playing this back and forth. It's kind of addicting in a way, just watching the news, watching the news and hearing what they say. Is it on 240%? I don't 240% tariffs, 10% now, 35%. You don't know where it's going. It's also probably not a good form of entertainment though, because it does affect our livelihoods. So it's
Yeah,
like
well, it
in
is.
one sense it's entertaining, but it's like we're
I,
playing with
I
fire
find it
here.
depressing just because of it seems unnecessary. I mean, I, everybody's for government reduction in cost. Everybody's for a fair market, all those things. But the way it's being done appears to be imprecise.
Yes.
The sledgehammer rather than the scalpel. So all these things are not necessarily bad things to do, but the way they're being done has pissed off our neighbors and put a smile on the face of our adversaries. Not really where we want to be, and certainly don't want to stay there for long. And there doesn't appear to be an easy exit. I mean, at this rate, 4 years is a really long time. So we'll see.
Fair enough. Okay, so we kind of talked a little bit about the overall market, what's going on right now. We talked a little bit about how we're seeing decreased amount of bookings, airplane orders. So are those also? I heard on the news, I think China stopped the like an order of Boeing's like Dreamliners, I believe it happened as well. So how will that I guess affect our industry, and also are there other countries doing something similar, or is it just China doing decreased orders?
Well, again, they're all in the commodity market. So um, the U.S. is the biggest market by far. So uh, Boeing is a really big part of our economy. If they end up getting some type of boycott, that would affect you know a measurable portion of the economy. The uh, the real again, it just comes back to the commodity. If there's less flying for any reason, whether it's a boycott or of a country or of a manufacturer, uh, any of those things are not good for our commodity. There might even be an increase in business elsewhere. Markets could shift, find other suppliers, other partners, other supporting groups, and that could be a long-term effect that would be hard to undo um, once established. So that's the long-term bad news, and again, it hasn't happened, just starting to happen. Not really sure where it's going to go, but if it does go, if you establish a new market for the commodity somewhere else, then that not only reduces our demand right now, but could reduce it long term.
Okay, I have two kind of trending things that are happening. So one of the things that I've seen also, this is kind of regardless, this is changing topic from the market, so we kind of know it's kind of crappy right now, so we kind of agree with that. Um, there were some talks, last year and prior to this about single pilot operations for
Mhm.
airlines. Um, where do you see that going in our industry? Do you think that the airlines are actually going to be able to pull that off, or do you think that we're going to maintain it as a two pilot or more crew operation for Part 121 type
Well,
flights?
I don't know about the airline staving it off. I mean, the labor is the biggest cost, if not
Fuel too,
fuel.
or
I mean,
fuel?
it's
Yeah.
a sort of a tie based on how high fuel costs are. But the two big cost items are fuel and people,
Hmm.
running about 30% each. And the pilots are 10% of the workforce, but they are 30% of the labor bill. So they make, on average, 3 times what everybody else makes. So if you're trying to save money, then you want to save money in the areas that are the largest cost, and pilots is a really big one. So there's a motivation on the company side to operate with as few pilots as possible. So the real test is whether the passenger will accept a reduced crew down to one. So far, that appears not to be the way the public would like to go. Um, Hard to say what they will do long term. I would
Hmm.
expect cargo to go single pilot first, maybe long range flights to not have as much augmentation. Right now, we go over 8 hours, we get an extra co-pilot. We go over 12 hours, we get two extra co-pilots, or a co-pilot and a captain, depending on the airline. So those are all uh, greatly increase the demand for pilots. But we might see, rather than that fourth pilot, certainly um, just three pilots and not having two pilots on the flight deck at all times. So cargo first, long range international perhaps second. I'm enheartened by the fact that our airplanes are all currently two-man airplanes, and an airplane typically lasts 25 or 30 years. So our current airplanes are going to last a while, and it would be a while before airplanes designed to operate with reduced crews would be available, other than the modification of current airplanes So it appears to be a ways down the road for passenger, maybe a little closer for not as many pilots international, and certainly closer for single pilot cargo. I think they'll be the ones to try it first. Don't have the objection of the passenger, and the box doesn't complain. So that's that it's a long view for pilots that are entering the job market today. I usually tell them that by the time there's a significant number of single pilot operations, that they'll be senior enough that it won't matter. As far as the next generation is their children, that's a big if, and the if
Mhm.
is, will the passenger accept single pilot passenger operations?
Yeah, I guess it does kind of matter what obviously society, what society's kind of heading, what their mental, what their thinking is, if they feel safe. And I think right now that's probably a big no. So, especially with the recent accidents that have occurred, media. I mean, technically, to be honest, I know that the Part 121 accidents are, get way more media coverage, so it's kind of been blasted a lot more. Technically, from what I'm seeing, is actually according to the NTSB, number of aircraft accidents and incidents are actually down, but the severity of that one or two that was out there kind of caused a mad rush in the media to kind of really proliferate what we see, and that has caused the population to really kind of start fearing flying in a way, or to not have as much trust, maybe, in the airline market.
Well,
So,
my perspective on that, and I've been on the media a number of times recently talking about the comfort of the passenger with the system. Um, you have to put some numbers with it. I mean, you can't just, if you take one crash and it kills 50 people, there's just nothing about that that's not horrible. But
yeah,
when you step back from it and realize worldwide we have 35 million flights a year, uh, we have a lot of exposure. We also have everybody with a color video camera in their hand, and the the video of this is on the air minutes after it happens. So it's a lot of exposure, a lot of a really high quality coverage, and it's making people feel like it's happening more frequently. But really, it's not. It's
right.
the instant coverage that's making it feel that way. If you look back for a fatal accident back in the 70s, we had 6 or 7 of those for every million flights. Today we have a half for every million flights. So that would mean big airlines like Delta, United, American fly about 1 million flights a year. So you would have to fly every flight at Delta for 2 years, 2 million flights before you would likely be exposed to an aircraft fatal accident. That puts it in perspective to me. I mean, driving yourself to the airport is about 20 times more dangerous than riding on an airplane. And you ride on the airplane at 30,000 feet and 600 miles an hour, and you ride in the car with 4 wheels on the ground at 60 miles an hour, where you can pull over to the side of the road if something goes wrong. It's an
Hmm.
amazingly safe, the safest mass transportation system, and it does it at incredible speed.
Yeah, definitely. Um, they kind of we talked a little bit about single pilot operations and also about the kind of sentiment in the population right now. That kind of goes towards the next one, which is pilot salaries. So we were talking about single pilot operations, how
Mm.
if there's a reduce that they want to reduce the cost, right? So we've seen a massive increase over the years, and that's kind of what we've been using as a marketing leverage or leverage tool, so to speak, is touting the opportunity for our prospective students, if they do pursue, to become a pilot, especially if they go to become a career pilot, they can easily be making six-figure salaries. If especially they become a captain at a major or something like that. So, where I know you don't have any charts right now, but where is the general trend, and what are your kind of thoughts on pilot salaries, and what's the outlook coming up in the next maybe 6 months to a year?
Well, yeah, the charts would be handy here, but I know enough about it to at least talk about it without a chart. So the first thing on these big cost items like fuel and people, pilots in particular, You hear some discussion about it's gotten too good that it can't be sustained. Well, my main comment on that is that if you have a known cost going into your business plan, you should be able to plan for that. And the airlines do a pretty good job of that. The one that gets us in trouble is not the pilot cost, but the fuel cost, because it goes up and down and we don't control that. So if you make a business plan with X fuel cost and all of a sudden it's X plus 30%, your business plan doesn't work. Whereas going into that business plan, you had a known cost, a agreed contract, published rates in the future, should be able to manage that successfully to a profit. So, having said that, pilot wages are, uh, ever since the Great Recession, ever since the '08, '09 Great Recession, where there were some significant pilot reductions, not only to pay, but also to benefits and retirement. But since then, which is now 15 years, and 3 or 4 years in the future with negotiated contract increases, um, pilot wages have doubled the rate of inflation. So typical rate of inflation, 2.3, 2.4%. The average wage increase on an annual basis for our major airlines since 2010 is over 5%. And it's forecast for another 3 or 4 years with the contracts in place to continue to double the inflation rate. So we have done really well. The last round of contracts, the initial raises were about 20%, and the raise over the length of the contract, typically 3 or 4 years, over 30%. So what was already a really good career, 30-year career averaging 12 million or so in today's dollars, not future dollars, and that's a combination of pay, benefits, and retirement, is now 30% higher. So we have an average career pushing $20 million, and I think it is a major marketing opportunity. Um, at the end of your career now, the hourly rates run $500 an hour or more, and if you add three zeros to that, that's pretty much your annual salary. You can fly 1,000 hours a year, 83 hours a month for pay. Actually, for actual flying, you could get paid for a lot more. So these are jobs that yield a half a million in salary, plus 15% non-retirement benefits, 18% company, 100% company paid benefits, a profit sharing that averages 5 or 6% additional. And by then you have a retirement account that's worth several $1 million, like three or four, and the interest on $4 million that year. So the actual career values, not just take home pay, in these later years, if you've got a 30, 35-year career, are approaching more like 750,000, which is just unheard of. I mean, you can make more money as a doctor or lawyer if you're the partner in the law firm or the
Hmm.
way up there. But this is working 15 days a month, uh, not 8-hour days, admittedly longer days. Getting to fly airplanes, which many people consider to be fun. Certainly I do. So, working 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, a person works 22 days a month, typical 8-hour a day, 9 to 5 person. So a pilot, he puts his hours in, but he creates meaningful time off by working in groups of 3 or 4 days, typically, with 3 or 4 days off. So if you take that 22 days for the average 9 to 5 person versus 15 for a pilot, you get an extra week off every month for the rest of your life. The compensation, the time off, a retirement you can actually live on. I mean, 18% company paid retirement now with Delta United American yields a $3 or $4 million lump sum at 30 years. And,
Mm.
and like I said, you can actually live on that. So, and there are not a lot of retirements out there that you can actually live on without any help. So
Right.
pay benefits, retirement, time off. The biggest thing that's very hard to communicate. I work with a lot of military pilots I'm an ATP, CTP instructor on the side. And the hardest thing is the flexibility to, to communicate flexibility to someone is very hard to do. But in the military especially, you have somebody looking over your shoulder all the time. And if you're not doing your job, you're managing or supervising something else, or somebody's managing or supervising you. But the airline position on those 15 days off, you don't have to answer the phone. There's no other responsibilities. So it is a combination of pay and benefits, retirement, but this self-determination, where you determine as your seniority increases what you're going to fly, where you're going to fly, when you're going to fly, when you're not going to fly, how much money you make, and how big your retirement will be. It's that kind of personal choices that I always joke that you can put a bug or a dog or a person in a box. If you take away their choices, they're likely to be unhappy. But in this case, we have a wide variety of choices along with good pay and benefits, good time off. The combination's a very powerful job. I mean, it's really uh, unusual. You can make more doing other things, but you're going to be working 80 hours a week. It's hard to have this kind of income, benefits, retirement, time off without somebody looking over your shoulder. You pretty much have to be the business owner to have that flexibility, and then you're probably working 60 or 80 hours a week to make the business work. So, pilot, you put
Don't
your
get me started on how many hours I put in the
you know,
company.
you put your iPad down and go home, and you don't have any responsibilities until you pick your iPad up, and go back to work.
Exactly. So it's an interesting time of the year, I suppose. So in one sense, we have the market going down because of government and
Yeah,
whatever. And then in another
starting now.
sense, we've already all the work we've been doing in the past has really set us up for success in a way, for pilot salaries and pilot benefits. Now, whether or not the demand for a pilot, so you have a highly prized kind of job or position, and the slots are not there. The slots are it's harder to do. So
Hmm.
it's going to demand, I think, a little bit more. And this is kind of coming from the last podcast we had with Mary Hsu, our DPE. We're going to have to expect a higher standard from our students. I think we can't just teach to the minimums. You have to teach to mastery. And that way, we create the most competitive and safe, competent pilots out there that can land these opportunities, because the opportunities are out there. It's just the ease is not it's not as easy as it used to be, but
Well, the
the reward is bigger, is what I'm hearing.
the reward is good, but the hiring itself, we didn't really talk about that. Again, some good charts for that, but the major airlines have hired about 5,000 pilots a year, three times in history before COVID. So, and then at COVID, went to nothing for a little while. But in the last half of 2021, 6 month period, we hired 5,000 pilots. And then the next 2 years, we hired 12 and 13,000 pilots for a total of 30,000 pilots in 2.5 years, an incredible period. The forecast going into this year was 5 to 6,000. Now, I'm not sure that's going to materialize with recent events, but that 5 or 6,000 would be the third or fourth best year in history. So coming into the year forecast and actual hiring, airlines were hiring about 500 a month. That's 6,000 a year. So it was, for January, February, starting in March, and now we have a slight downturn, significant. Not sure if it's going to continue, uh, but that's probably going to reduce the actual hiring this year to a lower number. How much lower, we don't know yet. We're going to have to wait those 3 to 6 months to see what the fallout is for the current policies and reaction of the U.S. citizens and the foreign citizens to those policies. So we shall see.
We shall see. It's interesting times. Interesting time to be in the aviation industry here. So,
Hmm.
well, we really appreciate you, Kit. We had some trouble in the beginning, kind of getting you online, but we had some good conversation. I think some good insights in the market. This is what we had actually a two-part series. So this one was more on, I guess, kind of the airline trends, and then I think your second one was on something else, right?
Yeah, it
So
was
what
on
we
the,
can
call it job search planning for
jobs.
pilots. So it's
Okay.
looking at the different segments, majors, regionals, fractionals, corporate, and the pay and benefits, minimum requirements getting in, pay and benefits for those segments. And we should have time to cover the charts for both of these on our next presentation.
Yeah. So I believe we have it scheduled already on the calendar. We haven't really announced it yet, but it's in May 20. I think it's a little bit. No, no. When is this? May something.
Yeah, I'd have to look at my calendar
Yeah,
and see.
it's somewhere in there. I think May 30th, actually, if I remember right. So we have it
Yep.
towards the end of May. We're gonna have another
Yeah.
presentation where and what we gotta do, we gotta log in ahead of time and get this tech stuff sorted out, so we don't have
Yeah.
this issue again. Um, so we're gonna go over again, kind of what we discussed, but more in detail. We're gonna have like the charts and all that stuff, hopefully fully loaded, and then what I'll do as to kind of conclude the podcast. We start with the introduction. We kind of have a good conversation. Then towards the end, we also do what's called a call to action. So, um, you know, this is kind of your chance, Kit, to
Yeah.
tell whoever might be listening what you want them to do. So whether that's
Well, do we
what
have any
service do you offer, any
questions?
services, or is there any questions from the audience or anything like
Yeah, we
that right
have an
now?
open chat. We could certainly handle some questions.
Yeah. Any questions out there before we kind of conclude here?
So my main business is expert witness. So I work to take these career values we're talking about uh, and to determine what a pilot has lost if he's injured, killed, delayed. So that's my main, and hopefully you never need those services. But if you do, then I write a report, stand behind it at deposition and trial for what a pilot has lost if he's been delayed or injured, lost his medical, that type of thing.
Yeah. So, and then if anyone wants to reach you and like reach you, do you have an email or a website you want us to kind of lead to?
Well, my name pretty much says it all, just kitdarby.com, both for pilot career development. So we do resumes, applications, interview preparation, and handle a myriad of problems. We call it disclosure items, pilots with accidents, incidents, violations, training failures, asked to resign. We help them deal with those on their applications and in their interviews. So we do have a fair number of pilot services that might be of benefit to your customers coming in if they have questions in that area, to your instructors moving up toward the regional or major airlines.
Yeah. So if you are a flight school owner and you have some students or some CFIs that are looking for some pilot career advice, some mentorship, I think Kit is also a great resource for that. You can go to kitdarby.com and check him out. Um, now it's my turn to toot my horn. So this is the Right Rudder Marketing Podcast, aviation business podcast. We're gonna be rebranding it soon, and we host a variety of episodes. We try to do one at least once a month, if not more frequently. So if you are a aviation business owner and would like to kind of promote your business, talk about what's your take on the aviation market, please give us a call. It's 314-804-1200. You can also check us out online at rightruddermarketing.com. We help flight schools all across the nation really grow and scale and enroll more pilots. So we're your marketing partner to help you enroll more students. We are a digital marketing agency, so we do website design, SEO, which is search engine optimization, help you get on top of Google, help you with paid ads, help you with CRM, crew resource management. Work with customers, automations and texting and all that type of stuff. So yeah, please feel free to book a call with us and all that stuff. So without further ado, we're going to conclude here. We really appreciate you. We're going to be back live with Kit at the end of May with updated figures. I guess it might change. You never know. The market keeps changing, so we'll have the updated figures for you. We apologize we couldn't get out today. I had some technical issues, but we will get it out to you guys at the end of May. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.
All right. Bye-bye.